Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. Welcome to the COVID Safe Industry webinar on strengthening business resilience and continuity towards the new normal. My name is Wah Long, and I will be your MC for today. With the need for extra vigilance during this period of COVID-19 heightened alert, this webinar has been put together to share with stakeholders across the built environment sector to engage the industry on the transition to endemic norm, to provide clarity on government support measures and contractual issues, and to continue the conversation on industry transformation. Before we start, I would like to go through some webinar administrative matters. Please note that as participants, you are on mute setting. Should you have any questions about the presentation topics, you may post your questions by clicking the Q&A button on your screen to type in your queries. Do also note that when the session ends, after you have exited the webinar, you will be directed to access a feedback form. Once you have submitted the form, you will be able to download the speaker's presentation materials via the website as shown. Shown on the screen here is an overview of today's program. To kickstart today's webinar, I would like to invite Mr. Tan Kiat Hao, Minister of State for Ministry of Communications and Information and Ministry of National Development to deliver the opening address. MOS Tan, please.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for making time to attend today's webinar. Since last year, we have been meeting very regularly to provide updates on the COVID situation, discuss issues, and find ways to collectively tackle these challenges. And we have come a long way since the start of the pandemic, from controlling the transmission within our dormitories last year to implementing various measures to ensure the health and safety of our workers at work sites so that the construction sector can resume work as soon and as much as possible. With everyone's cooperation and hard work, the construction activity has seen improvement in the last year, although it's still below the pre-COVID levels. However, in the community, the number of new COVID cases each day still remain high, and we are likely to continue to see higher numbers of cases compared to previously in the coming days, as we step up efforts to detect them to contain the spread in the community. The recent return to phase 2 heightened alert due to a spike in community cases is a stark reminder that we must remain vigilant and not let our guard down. Our worry is the spread from the community into the dorms and affecting our construction sector. Therefore, while I'm pleased to share that the vaccination rate for our migrant workers has been very positive, I would like to urge more locals in our sector to take up vaccination. Only about 56% of our locals working in the built environment sector have been fully vaccinated. I seek your support to encourage your workers, your local workers, to do so that we can all together minimize the risk of workers from the dorms getting infected when they interact with their workers and co-workers living outside the dorms at the work sites, and then spreading them into the dorms. So please encourage your workers to take up vaccination as soon as it is offered. And please help to make the necessary work and transport arrangements for them to go for their vaccination as scheduled. I also like to take this opportunity to encourage everyone to take our safe management measures seriously at our work sites. Recently, there have been a few cases of work sites letting in workers without checking in via the safe entry, or letting in workers who have not gone their regular routine testing or RRT. Complying with our safe management measures also include keeping our masks on at all times and for our workers to stay within their segregated work zones. So I hope to get the support of all our fellow industry partners and employers in this regard. We know that the industry is still grappling with a significant manpower crunch due to tighter border measures. And to address this, BCA has worked with MOM to temporarily allow new construction work permit holders from People's Republic of China or PRC to obtain their skills certification in Singapore instead of at the Overseas Testing Center in China until the end of this year. MOM has also been exercising greater flexibility for firms to retain their existing work permit holders. MOM is also looking into providing temporary flexibility granted to construction work permit holders from a few other countries to take their skills test in Singapore instead of in their source country. In addition to those flexibilities that were granted to the PRC workers. MOM and BCA are reviewing other flexibilities and will share more details when ready. At the same time, the construction industry has also recently adopted an Alliance for Action or AFA approach to bring in migrant workers safely in partnership with our agencies. This pilot comprises a tightened end-to-end process involving protocols such as a stringent COVID-19 testing regime for workers over a 14-day period at dedicated facilities in the source country before they depart for Singapore. This is so that we can all minimize the risk of importing COVID-19 cases into Singapore. As a start, we have brought in a small numbers of workers from India and Malaysia. Thus far, the results are very encouraging. We are studying with industry partners on how to scale up this process so as to facilitate a steady inflow of migrant workers in a safe and secure manner. To also support the additional manpower and compliance costs arising from the COVID-19 situation, we have provided significant financial support that included the $1.36 billion construction support package and various foreign worker levy waivers and rebates, as well as wage support levels for local employees under the job support scheme. MOF and BCA have also recently introduced a further simplified claims process for prolongation costs in public sector construction contracts with value more than $100 million due to COVID-19 events. A base amount of $100,000 will be claimable for every month of certified delay without the need for contractors to put up detailed substantiation. This is in addition to the base amount of 0.1% of contract sum provided for projects up to $100 million, which we announced earlier back in April. We have also put in place unprecedented legal mechanisms to support the affected firms under the COVID-19 Temporary Measures Act, or COTMA for short. For instance, we provided firms with temporary relief from certain legal action under Part 2 and a universal extension of time, or EOT, to complete projects under Part 8A. A new Part 10A will also commence tomorrow. This is to require project parties to fairly share the increases in foreign manpower cost due to COVID-19, to provide relief to contractors bearing the additional manpower costs since the end of last year. Contract parties are encouraged to negotiate on the cost sharing of manpower cost increases between themselves. If negotiations fail, contractors can still make an application on BCA's website for an independent assessor who is experienced industry professional to determine the cost sharing amount between the parties. My BCA colleagues will provide updates on our various COTMA initiatives later. So let's looking ahead. We are in a much better position compared to 1 year ago and compared to many parts of the world. Our national vaccination drive is progressing well. We have a robust test and surveillance protocol in place. while there are still many uncertainties ahead of us, we are looking ahead with more confidence. I would like to share with you some areas of focus that we need to work on together as Singapore prepares to transit to a new normal where COVID is endemic. First, our priority is to work with the industry to ensure the safety of our workers and work sites. We have introduced measures such as regular testing regimes, dedicated transport requirements, and stringent safe management measures to reduce the risk of transmission in our workforce. To further safeguard our construction workers, we urge firms not to cross-deploy your construction account workers for work outside the construction services. And we hope all of you employers can continue with the safety measures and take ownership in safeguarding your workforce, even when our sector moves towards an endemic state. Having said that, even as more and more workers receive their vaccinations, we are now dealing with a more transmissible variant. In this regard, testing and surveillance will continue to be very important to us. Even before we reach the required vaccination rate, we shift towards the endemic stage. We are encouraging the use of antigen rapid tests, or ART, as it is a quick and easy way to carry out regular testing for workers deployed to construction sites. To facilitate a wider adoption of ART, we have streamlined the ART regime, making it easier for contractors to administer. My BCA colleagues will share more details with you later. In addition, we encourage you to test your workers even if they are not deployed to construction sites. This can help to safeguard our construction workforce in view of the recent rise in community cases. This will help us identify and isolate any COVID-19 cases much more quickly and break the chain of transmission. Secondly, our norms for design as well as operation and maintenance of buildings will need to be adapted to minimize the risk of virus transmission in enclosed environments. This is why BCA, together with NEA, MOH, and LTA, has jointly released guidelines on how to enhance the ventilation and air quality in indoor spaces. This can be done through proper operation and maintenance of air conditioning and mechanical ventilation systems, thus reducing the risk of COVID transmission within such enclosed spaces. While the recommendations are not mandatory, I strongly encourage building owners and facilities managers to follow the guidelines to maintain a healthy indoor environment for all end users. We are also concurrently reviewing the infrastructure standards for future new dormitories to better prepare for future pandemics. For a start, we have piloted improved standards at the Quick Built Dormitories, or QBDs, since June 2020, last year. In developing the standards, we have taken into consideration our QBD experiences, feedback from our stakeholders, such as employers, migrant workers, dormitory operators, and NGOs, and enhanced dormitory management practices like safe living measures and contact tracing. We are in the midst of finalizing the new standards, which will be announced later this year. Thirdly, it's timely for us to start shifting our focus towards planning for business continuity in the endemic state. Even as we look towards bringing in workers safely, it's crucial for us to accelerate our transformation effort. This can help reduce our over-reliance on migrant workers and strengthen our industry resilience against future disruptions. There are two areas which I'd like to focus on today, how we can reduce this reliance on foreign manpower. First, we can step up efforts to automate manpower-intensive construction processes by moving construction off-site into a controlled factory environment, from field to factory. In this regard, we encourage firms to adopt greater prefabrication and design for manufacturing and assembly, or DFMA technologies for your projects where possible. Second, we can also leverage integrated digital delivery or IDD to digitally integrate the work processes of stakeholders across the different phases of the building's life cycle. The seamless flow of information allows project stakeholders to collaborate effectively and reduce abortive work processes. Coupled with the use of robotics and smart technologies, this will enhance productivity and further reduce our manpower needs. I strongly encourage for firms to make use of various schemes under BCA's Build SG Transformation Fund to support your transformation effort, such as the Productivity Solutions Grant or PSG for SMEs and the Productivity Innovation Project or PIP for larger projects. Please seize this opportunity to tap on the support schemes to embark on your transformation journey. Together, we can develop a technologically advanced industry, higher skilled and higher wage jobs in a more work conducive environment. And this will help the industry attract more Singaporeans, young Singaporeans, to join us. Another important lesson that we have learned from the COVID-19 pandemic is recognizing the need for a more resilient and agile built environment ecosystem. And this requires various stakeholders in the whole value chain to work closely together and adapt swiftly in the event of crisis, like what we have seen last year. The heavy interdependencies within the construction value chain means that there's great potential for synergy if everyone can work together. This calls for stronger collaborative efforts across the entire value chain to catalyze industry-wide transformation. This is why we will be rolling out a new Growth and Transformation Scheme, or GTS, later this year. The GTS takes a new approach to support alliances of firms along the value chain, such as developers, consultants, contractors, and subcontractors, instead of just looking at individual firms. This means that firms in alliance will undergo transformation together by adopting new or advanced technologies, building better capabilities, and developing their workforce together as part of the alliance. We plan to start small with a few alliances, learn and adapt this whole approach along the way. While the COVID-19 has dealt us a major blow, I think it has also pushed us to take bolder steps in thinking how we can transform and taking bolder steps to transform the way we work. I hope that we can keep these conversations going as we journey together to resolve our current crisis, while accelerating transformation to emerge stronger in an endemic COVID-19 normal. My BCA colleagues will present some of the issues that I've outlined earlier, and I look forward to hearing your views too. Please keep these conversations going, and I wish you all the best. Let us journey together. It has been a very tough year and a half for everyone in the industry. The construction industry, the built environment industry was one of the most badly hit sector in Singapore and around the world as well. So I thank all of you for the support, for hard work. Please stay safe and stay well, and let us work together to emerge stronger. Thank you very much.
Thank you, MOS. The first presentation is on the requirements for workers and worksite operations by Mr. Benjamin Tan, Senior Manager, Audit and Inspection Group, BCA. Benjamin, over to you, please.
Hi, thanks, Wai Long. Good afternoon to you. This afternoon, I'll be sharing on the requirement for workers and worksite operations. So this is the outline of my presentation this afternoon. I will first start off by sharing BCA's findings on SMM practices at work sites, as well as recent COVID cases. Our inspection findings have shown a low rate of SMM breaches at 8% among projects. However, from these projects, we found that many of them are from small work sites. We have also observed that recent COVID cases come from workers staying in non-dormitories. We therefore like to remind builders of small projects and employers of workers who are staying in non-dormitories to monitor their workers closely to ensure that they comply with the SMM requirements. The common features that we found at work sites are the mismatch of safe entry records. Personnel are not being approved by BCA found on site. The appointed SMO not on site, or the SMOs weren't appointed by the work site, which are key indicators for builders to monitor their workforce at the work site. In light of the recent committee cases linked to Jurong Fishery Port Cluster, builders need to remain vigilant and are strongly encouraged to adopt good practices to prevent the spread of COVID at their worksite and to minimize worksite disruptions. This includes ensuring employees carry out mandatory RRT, practicing and adhering to good SMM at the worksites, monitoring new and unvaccinated workers, and to ensure that the SMOs and SDOs closely monitor any mask-off activities, such as in confined spaces. This slide shows some of the good practices and compliance to the SMM that our inspectors observe at the worksites. This includes observation of safe distancing and wearing of masks, checking in using Trace Together Safe Entry, providing of a unique visual identifiers to visitors and providing escort to visitors by the SDO. Some sites have also implemented the centralized data platform known as the CSP that enables the extraction and management of information by builders. Some sites have also provided proper and clear segregation of work zones, as well as rest areas, to prevent workers from different teams crossing into each other's zone. While the earlier slide shows the good practices and SMM compliance, our inspectors have also found SMM features at work sites. This includes a mixing of workers in mixing of different teams of workers in a lift, non-observations of safe distancing during the check-ins, workers not wearing masks, no indications of work zones and unclear demarcation of work zones resulting in mingling of workers, and there was no clear demarcation at the rest areas and no safe distancing observed at the rest areas. Critically, our inspectors also found red access code workers on site. All this could potentially result in COVID-19 spread at the work site and disrupt the work. I will next move on to a group of high-risk stakeholders that pose a higher risk of spreading the COVID-19 at work sites, such as the moving subcontractors, visitors, and delivery personnel. These people generally stays at a work site for a short period of time and move between multiple work sites. Therefore, work sites must adopt additional measures for this group of people when they're at the site to mitigate the risk. The additional measures that builders must implement for moving subcontractors and visitors are asking them to carry out their site visits and tasks outside the work hours on the main workforce, wherever possible, providing moving subcontractors and visitors with a unique visual identifier, and ensure that this group of people are closely monitored by the SMO or SDO for the entire duration that they are at the site. This group of people must also maintain a safe distancing of at least 2 meters from other teams at the worksite. For delivery personnel, builders must ensure that the builders stay within the vehicle cabin and make sure the loading and unloading are done by the on-site workers. Builders must also schedule deliveries in a staggered manner to avoid social interactions with the on-site workforce. And lastly, builders must ensure that all cross-border delivery personnel show their colored wristbands prior to allowing them to enter the worksite. In addition, builders are strongly encouraged to defer all non-essential services at their work sites to minimize the number of visitors and reduce the risk of spread of COVID-19. These services should be kept outside the site boundaries from the main workforce. Qualified persons who are supervising the construction projects can also review the site supervision requirements for their projects and consider deploying remote site supervision for building works where suitable. In terms of accommodations, employers should work towards cohorting their workers by projects, or if not, minimally by employers. Dedicated transport has to be provided for all workers residing in dormitories, as well as all non-dorm work pass holders going to and from construction sites. This is to prevent intermixing between the workers and the public during the commute. To summarize, we would like to remind builders to remain extra vigilant to keep our construction sector COVID safe. BCA will continue to heighten our enforcement stance against builders who do not comply with COVID-19 laws, as non-compliance will undermine the good work of the rest of the construction industry in combating COVID-19. With our national vaccination program underway and making steady progress, we strongly urge builders to take on ownership towards managing and minimizing COVID-19 risks, particularly on ART implementation at work sites, as we transit past this heightened alert phase. More importantly, the industry has to achieve a high vaccination rate as it reduces the risk of infection and transmission. And therefore, we would like to encourage all employees to be vaccinated is offered to you and your employees. Thank you.
Thank you, Benjamin. The next presentation is on the piloting of antigen rapid test, ART, implementation at construction work sites by Ms. Ong Shi Ying, Senior Manager, Manpower Strategy and Planning Group, BCA. Shi Ying, over to you, please.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Today, I'll be sharing the topic on piloting antigen rapid test implementation at construction work sites. So this is the outline of my presentation today. I will share on the progress of the ART pilots at work sites, ART requirements, and the relevant preparation and implementation details. So as part of the safe management measures, the rostered routine testing, RRT, is currently in place as a surveillance tool to identify, isolate, and prevent spread of the COVID-19 to work sites. The current RRT regime applies to anyone entering construction work sites and supply works premises, regardless of their vaccination status. To further reduce the risk of COVID-19 transmission into or within work sites, BCA is working with these work sites to pilot the implementation of ART, which serves as an additional layer of mitigation measure in our sector. So why should we implement ART at work sites now? The ART enables us to screen personnel before they enter the work sites, to detect potential COVID-19 infections earlier so that necessary public health actions may be taken sooner when required. The implementation of ART is especially pertinent during this time when community cases are on the rise, and construction work sites which implement ART early will be better positioned to continue works with minimal disruptions. Furthermore, developers and contractors are strongly encouraged to pilot now than later, given that the ART test kits are provided at no cost to work sites during this pilot phase, and the ART supervisory training are being subsidized for a limited period. So since June, the pilot program to implement ART at work sites were already extended to main contractors of ongoing construction projects, ready-mix concrete companies, and DFMA suppliers. More than 130 work sites have started operation and about 300 are in the process of implementing. The photos on this slide show an example of how workers are administering the supervised self-swabs at the ART station of the pilot work sites. So for work sites which are piloting ART, the regime will apply to all personnel entering the work sites, only for those who are not residing in dormitories. So this includes all Singaporeans, PRs, and migrant workers residing in HDB and private residential properties, regardless whether they are workers or visitors to these sites. The ART frequency is broadly once every 3 days, depending on the vaccination status. And this is on top of the RRT regime. Before entering work sites, relevant personnel will have to administer the ART test kits through self-swabs under supervision. Earlier this month, BCA has streamlined the ART earlier in July, BCA has streamlined the ART regime to make it easier for contractors to implement the ART. So selected personnel now have the option to remotely administer ART at home with virtual supervision done via video call. So this includes workers, visitors at small work sites who have less than 20 non-dom workers visitors daily, and Singaporean citizens and PRs, regardless whether they are entering big or small sites. So here's an overview of the implementation steps to pilot ART at job work sites. I will go through the details in the subsequent section. BCA Academy has rolled out the ART swabbing and supervision for built environment training course to support the implementation of the ART testing regime under the supervision of competent ART supervisors. Companies can enroll your assigned ART supervisors for training ahead of the ART implementation. Contractors must ensure that you have sufficient ART supervisors that complete and pass the course before they can implement ART at work sites. Next, contractors will have to prepare and set up your worksite for ART operations. So I'll share more in the subsequent slides. However, as mentioned earlier, selected personnel and worksites can adopt more streamlined ART regime to administer ART at place of accommodation under supervision. And ART supervisors will be allowed to reduce PPE requirements if the site layout allows them to maintain a 3-meter distance from individuals conducting self-swab. So for a typical work site which have the space to set up ART station, you will need to select a suitable location to set up. Self-swab instruction guides like this in different languages will be provided to you to display at the ART station. Your selection of ART station should allow fresh air ventilation. This could be outdoor spaces and fields with tentages and raised platforms to cater for wet weather. Although less ideal, indoor function spaces or canteens may be used. However, the doors and windows should be open and allow as much fresh air ventilation as possible. So contractors should plan your site layout and a copy of the site layout plan must be retained on site. We also suggest that you have 2 queues at the site to facilitate faster entry to site, one for those who needs to take ART for the day and those who can enter without taking ART. Here's an example of a site layout, which you can find in the ART playbook. The site layout includes the entry/exit points, registration, and swabbing stations. More examples can be found in the playbook for reference. This is uploaded on our BCA's website. To ensure proper infection prevention controls, a checklist will be provided to contractor to check if the following 7 areas have been complied to the standards within. So this includes registration area, sample activity and testing area, holding area, process to convey antigen positive cases, PPE and hygiene standards, and disposal of waste materials. So if your ART kits are disposed as general waste, work sites will have to ensure that the waste must be double bagged and cable tied before sending for incineration. Next, to draw ART test kits, contractors managing work sites and companies managing supply works premises can submit your orders for the free ART kits via a Form SG registration form. So in the application form, you will need to declare the estimated total number of non-dorm workers and visitors in a month to draw a month's worth of supply, as well as the target commencement date in the application form. So this is the link to the form, but you can also find it on our ART webpage on our website. This is an overview of a typical self-swab journey at construction sites. The entire journey should just take about 10 to 15 minutes from arrival to registration and administering of ART swab. So once confirmed with an ART negative result, personnel will be allowed to enter the worksite. The ART or main point of contact should upload the test results immediately after the completion of the test for the day. So from 13 August onwards, SCPRs should all transit to upload using SRS version 2, where individuals can create your own profile and provide a QR code to the ART supervisor at site to assist the individuals in uploading their results to SRS. Similarly, migrant workers can also upload their ART results using FWMomCare, which results will be piped to SRS. Individuals' ART results will be recorded and reflected in their respective Health Hub or FWMomCare app after the ART results have been successfully uploaded. In the interim till 12 August, those who are already piloting ART at their work sites can continue to use your existing templates in the SRS to upload your ART results. All user guides and templates are available and uploaded on BCA's website. Moving on to managing test results. So here's an overview of the workflow to manage the different types of test results. So when a worker is tested antigen negative, he can proceed to enter the worksite. In the case of an ART invalid case, the worker can take one more retest. However, if there is 2 invalid results, it will be treated as an ART positive case. ART positive cases will be required to take confirmatory PCR tests. I will elaborate more in my subsequent slide. So for ART positive case or worker with 2 consecutive invalid results, the individual should be isolated at site and his employer should be informed. The main con or the employer should ensure that all the ART positive individuals go for a confirmatory PCR swab at the SASH at PHPC clinics and submit your positive results to BCA via the Form S3 that is stated here. You can also find the link on our website. As main con art supervisor or employer, you will be required to have sight over the worker's positive or invalid test, issue the standard MOH ART test memo to individuals, inform worker of his or her legal requirements to go for the PCR test, issue him or her the referral note to take the PCR test at the clinic. In terms of conveyance, individuals should travel via private transport. So this means car or taxi with the windows down, with air conditioning switched off. So in addition, worker will need to wear surgical mask and sit alone in the back seat. Seat should be wiped down at the end of the trip. The following list of private transport service providers are available for booking. Do note that the transport costs will have to be borne by the worker or the employer. So to onboard and implement ART at work sites, please visit the ART webpage to access the various ART resources, including the playbook on our website. So you'll be able to download our presentation materials after our webinar session today and access to all the relevant links that we shared. So this is the end of my sharing. I will now hand back the time to the MC. Thank you.
Thank you, Shi Ying. The final presentation for today's webinar is by Mr. Feng Hui Dong, Senior Manager, Business Development Group, BCA, who will be sharing on the latest support measures for the built environment sector. Let us welcome Hui Dong.
Good morning, everyone. Once again, welcome to today's COVID Safe Leadership webinar. Up next, I'll be updating everyone on the latest support measures specifically provided to our BE sector to cushion some of the impact brought about by COVID-19. We hope that through the webinar series, many more have become familiar with the available support measures. So today's sharing will focus more on the contractual reliefs under the COVID-19 Temporary Measures Act. In the first half of today's presentation, we'll cover some of the selected support measures. The second half will cover possible contractual elements for when COVID is endemic, including clauses to effect more equitable risk sharing in the construction tenders going forward. Cash flow is the lifeblood of the industry. COVID and the continued disruption of construction activities has either reduced or delayed revenue, thereby affecting cash flow. Before we go into the contractual measures, we wanted to take the opportunity to highlight the loan schemes available to help firms with cash flow. The two schemes, the Temporary Bridging Loan Program and the SME Working Capital Loan, are applicable to firms, including facility managers and renovation contractors, to help ease cash flow. For more details on the loan schemes and the full list of support measures, firms may head over to the URL provided here or scan the QR code that we will provide at the end of this presentation. With that, we'd like to move into a recap of the COVID-19 Temporary Measures Act, or in short, COTMA. COTMA was urgent and unprecedented legislation formulated to provide contractual reliefs. This was necessary as contractors are obliged to deliver projects according to the timeline and price under the contract agreed before COVID. It is unprecedented and unconventional for the government to intervene in existing contractual agreements between parties, but this was needed to preserve the capability and capacity of the BE sector. We established legislative standards through COTMA on legal actions against non-performance, universal extension of time, and cost sharing. Today's focus is on the latest edition, or Part 10A, to help with increased manpower costs in contracts. We'll also cover how we enhanced the simplification of claims processing for non-manpower cost sharing under Part 8B. We'll share more of these two items in the subsequent slides. As a quick recap, COTMA was enacted in April last year to offer temporary relief to businesses and individuals who have been affected by COVID-19. The overarching principle is to ensure that no single stakeholder bears an undue share of the burden imposed by COVID-19. COTMA is also legislation, meaning that it covers all eligible contracts in both public and private sector, including eligible subcontracts. Before we go into 10A, we also want to stress the importance of COTMA Part 2. It provides protection to firms against their contract liabilities due to an inability to perform or meet obligations due to COVID. Such events can include original delivery deadlines, which have now become unrealistic. Part 2 covers construction and supply contracts entered into before 25th March 2020, and the relief period is between 1st Feb 2020 until the end of the prescribed period, which had been extended previously to the current end date of 30th September 2021. To be protected under Part 2, the contractor must serve notification for relief. The NFR serves as a defense against claims for breach of contract, damages, or to disregard any liquidated damages or LD payable due to delays sustained during the relief period. This protection extends itself beyond 30th September for delays sustained during the relief period. It will also disallow the other party to call on performance bonds or to start court or insolvency proceedings. Next, on Part 8B. 8B entitles all eligible construction contracts, including subcontracts, to claim for half of the non-manpower related costs, which were incurred due to delays materially caused by COVID-19. The cost sharing under 8B is up to 0.2% of the contract sum per month of certified delay, with a total cap of 1.8% of the contract sum. Contractors can similarly put up their qualifying costs incurred to their main contractors. Do note that the claims are enforceable under the Security of Payment Act. To simplify the claim process and to facilitate the disbursement of claims under Part 8B, the public sector developed the following approaches, which had been discussed and agreed with the major GPEs, Singapore Contractors Association or SCAL, and other TACs such as the Institute of Architects and the Institute of Surveyors and Valuers. So for contracts up to $100 million, the contractors can claim a base amount of 0.1% of the awarded contract sum per month of certified delay without need for substantiation. For larger contracts above 100 million, we have recently introduced a new approach for the projects to claim a base amount of 100,000 per month of certified delay without need for substantiation as well. We've also established a common computation method for equipment depreciation costs. Notwithstanding that the measures are adopted by government agencies for public sector contracts, the same methodologies could be adopted for the private sector as well. These approaches can greatly reduce the administrative burden on both parties, and we urge private sector contract parties to discuss and consider adopting the same. For additional claims above the base 0.1% or $100,000, similar to other contractual claims, contractors can submit these additional claims for cost sharing under Part 8B when putting up the monthly progress claim. To facilitate the process, we'd like to draw attention and to encourage contractors to use this template, which was developed together with SCAL, which can be downloaded from the link or the QR code that we'll provide at the end. Up next, we'll introduce the new COTMA Part 10A, which Minister of State had shared earlier would come into operation tomorrow. In terms of scope, Part 10A will apply to contracts for construction works. This includes subcontracts in both public and private sectors. Second, it will apply to construction contracts entered into before 1st October 2020 last year, as parties may not have fully priced in the foreign manpower cost increases before this date. Another reason is that substantial foreign worker levy waivers and rebates were provided by the government up to this point. The purpose of the adjustment is to take into consideration the increasing foreign manpower costs arising from increased wages of work permit holders due to COVID-19. The relief is for foreign manpower cost increase incurred by the contractor between 1st October and 30th September. This will tie in with the endpoints of relief under Part 2 and 8B of COTMA. I will share how COTMA 10A would work using a flowchart in the next slide. First of all, we encourage all stakeholders affected by the pandemic to negotiate with each other in good faith to adjust the contract sum and take into consideration the increased manpower costs. If successful, there is no need to tap on Part 10A. Parties can simply proceed to adjust the contract sum accordingly. If unsuccessful, however, the contractor can seek determination from an independent assessor to adjust the contract sum. The assessor will first check the contract's eligibility and proof of reasonable attempts by parties to negotiate before proceeding to consider the matters and principles in arriving at a just and equitable decision. For example, the assessor will also take into account all facts, including the loss suffered or benefit obtained by any party, such as foreign worker levy rebates. This table gives an example of what we mean by foreign manpower cost increases and how it might be possible to calculate this. So for each month, the daily average number of workers deployed for the project is first calculated and can be based on, for example, biometric entry data, and the total monthly salary paid is calculated based on this average number of workers deployed, substantiated with the pay slips for the workers' wages. Based on the total salary increase, that is the difference between the pre-COVID and post-COVID monthly salary, the parties can then apply a percentage of co-share as a factor. In this case, assuming a 50% co-share between the parties, we arrive at the amount for adjusting the contract sum. This slide contains some of the important details that you can expect once the Act is in operation. The primary mechanism for 10A, as shared, is for parties to apply and receive a determination from a third-party assessor. So what happens if you find yourself requiring such a determination? Firstly, you will need to apply for assessor's determination through the BCA website. The assessors are experienced independent industry professionals, such as quantity surveyors and Security of Payment Act adjudicators, with at least 10 years of local experience. The application period will be open between 6 August and 14 October this year. While fees involved can be similar, you can expect them to be similar to what is payable currently under the SOPA, or Security of Payment Act. This means that they are likely to range from between 4,000 to 28,000 per application, depending on the contract cost increase that you are claiming for. Again, we'd like to reiterate that parties that are able to successfully negotiate in good faith and adjust the contract sum should simply proceed to do so. No application is required for any determination by assessors if the parties are able to negotiate. BCA will be announcing these details and more tomorrow on 6 August. So do keep a lookout for the BCA circular and Telegram announcement. So definitely subscribe to our Telegram channel if you haven't done so. With our introduction to 10A completed, we transition into the second half of this presentation to look at contractual elements that may be helpful as we transition to an endemic COVID normal. Contractors have feedback that there have been rising material costs which have not been anticipated, including materials and shipping costs in the recent months. Fluctuation clauses can benefit projects by helping to better manage the uncertain impacts of material costs and could result in better outcomes in the form of risk premiums and higher assurance on successful delivery. For public sector contracts, Clause 33 currently allows for a mechanism to adjust the contractual sum to account for change in price of concrete and steel rebars based on the price indices published by BCA. Private sector contracts and subcontracts can also consider to include similar fluctuation clauses. Next, arising from challenges when dealing with the pandemic, we also wanted to share some of the work in place to effect more equitable risk sharing. From the experience of the current pandemic, stakeholders are worried about unanticipated cost increases due to unexpected developments during the pandemic. Understandably, contractors have also been buffering for risks in their tender bids, which have resulted in an increase in tender prices for new contracts as they factor in the risk premium. Hence, to ensure long-term business viability for the industry, it is in the interest of all stakeholders to have a more equitable risk allocation in the standard contract forms. Everyone along the value chain can and should step up to share the burden of uncertainty to help one another through challenging times together. In January 2021, we set up a work group led by BCA and comprising government agencies, consultants, and trade associations representing the developers, quantity surveyors, and architects. The work group is studying how to enhance our new standard construction contracts, both public and private, to enable more equitable risk and cost sharing during pandemic events and crises of this similar nature. Some of the ideas being deliberated by the work group include, for contractors, developer can provide provisional sums for known unknown costs, such as swab tests that can be anticipated for in a pandemic. New provisions in standard construction contracts can include grounds to entitle contractor to claim for extension of time and additional costs arising from pandemic events. For the consultants, developers can provide more interim payment milestones to facilitate cash flow. The standard consultancy agreement can similarly include provisions for additional costs for project delays due to the pandemic. Finally, developers can provide similar provisional sums for known unknown costs or swab tests. With that, we've come to the end of the sharing on the latest support measures. As promised, for more details and a full list of the support measures, you can follow the URL link here or simply scan the QR code. I'll now pass the time back to our MC, Walong, please.
Thank you, Wei Tong. We've now come to the panel dialogue. It will be chaired by Mr. Reginald Wee, Group Director, Industry Partnerships, Group 1, BCA. Also joining us this afternoon in the panel are Engineer Punitam, son of Shanmugam, Director, Audit and Inspection Group, BCA. Mr. Ng Man Hon, Director, Business Development Group, BCA. Mr. Aaron Xiao, Director, Business Development Group, BCA. Ms. Tan Lei Tuan, Director, Manpower Strategy and Planning Group, BCA. I will now hand over the time to the moderator. Regina, over to you, please.
Yeah, thanks, Walong. A lot of questions. I guess first off, probably the one burning question I see is actually not on the content itself, but on two things that I would sort of ask you to clarify, Walong. A lot of questions whether from participants whether they can download the slides, as well as download the Q&A. Maybe you could take that off first because it seems to be something anxious on their mind.
Hi, moderator. Yes, at the end of the event, after filling in an online feedback form, all participants will be directed to a web page where they can download all the presentation materials for today's webinar. So that's the first part. For the second part, yes, the Q&A will be compiled and uploaded on the same web page within 2 weeks after today's event.
Okay. Thanks, Walong. Maybe to start, a lot of questions on ART primarily because it's new. Maybe some of that is answered, but I thought it's useful to recap because it came up a few times. So for Lei Tuan or MST colleagues, is ART mandatory? And what is the ART schedule for vaccinated and non-vaccinated?
Okay, let me share with you. Thank you, Vijana. ART right now is on a pilot scheme for construction work sites. It is not mandatory. Basically, for those workers who are non-dom personnel entering the work site to work, they will be on the day 3, day 7, and day 11 of the unvaccinated workers of the 14-day RRT cycle. Then for those who have been vaccinated, it will be on day 7 of the 14-day RRT cycle that they should be on ART. Okay, I hope that clarifies. We hope more projects will come on board the pilot so that everybody will learn how to do the ART.
There was also some questions on basically for contractors with limited space, how they can go about it, as well as for subcons and maybe for renovation contractors as well, how they can get on. And for the last question, John wants to jump in, please do so. Yeah.
Okay, so for contractors who have less than 20 non-dom personnel visiting the work site or entering the work site every day, they can do it off-site. They need not have the on-site ART swap premises. All the SCPR of the contractors can also do their remote ART swap without having to do it at the site itself. So this should resolve some of the issues that site have constraints to have it done at the work site. Okay.
Probably over to Manhon now for COTMA Part 8B. Some questions on whether this applies to both private sector as well as public sector projects, or only for public sector projects.
Yeah, thanks, Reg. Okay, for COTMA is a law, is a legislation. So you will cover both public sector project, of course, private sector projects, main contracts, and subcontracts as well. So I think in the question itself, I think some participant mentioned that actually it doesn't cover those contracts that use other form of contract. Actually, it doesn't matter what form of contract they use, whether they use PSS COC or VETAS DNP contract or SIA COC. The Act itself cover all construction contracts that are as defined under the Security of Payment Act. Yeah.
For late one, some questions regarding RRT and ART. Basically, with regard to how the whether the ART schedule, how does it sit together with the RRT schedule?
Okay, just to share what I have already clarified earlier, if the workers are entering the work site, they should be on a 14-day RRT. So, for example, if a worker is unvaccinated and he is required to do his ART on day 3, day 7, and day 11, it means like, for example, you have done the RRT yesterday, then today will be your day 1. So day 1, day 2, day 3, when you enter the work site, you will have to have done your ART before going into the work site. So this ART, depending on whether the total number of workers going into a work site for the day, is it more than 20? If it's less than 20, he can actually do it the supervised way, virtually before or remotely supervised before he entered the work site, right? So that is the swap for the day 3. But if say day 3, he doesn't go to the work site, he missed his ART swap, and day 4, he goes to the work site. So that means day 4, he will do his ART swap to make up for the one he missed on day 3. So that is in gist how it is supposed to be done. Is that clear now?
I think that's clearer. There were also some questions on which was answered online, but I'll just repeat it because it appeared a few times, on whether government will look at extending the RRT subsidies, as well as what our position is on vaccination, whether we encourage it.
Yeah, okay. For the subsidies, it's still being looked at. So we will share the industry when we are more ready. It has been, all industry have been informed that it's until 30th September as of now. Meanwhile, we would like to encourage the contractors to send the workers for vaccination. Vaccination is paid for by the government, and do come forward because those vaccinated will be protected against COVID. And if you can see from the ART pilot scheme, actually the vaccinated requires less testing because they are at less risk. They're only required to do at day 7 of the 14-day RT regime, whereas the unvaccinated, they have to do it 3 times within the 14-day RT regime. So do send your workers for vaccination early. Just to share, I think about yesterday or 1-2 days ago, MOH has informed that all can walk into 11 vaccination centers to get their Moderna vaccine without a prior booking. So if your worker is yet to be vaccinated, please inform them that they can just walk in. All right.
There's also seems to be some confusion on basically getting notification from the FWMOM Care app. Could you clarify a bit on that for the ART?
Okay, like I have shared in the chat group, if you all can read. But in summary, this is actually to assist the projects on the pilot to monitor whether the workers are due for the non-dom workers are due for the ART. So it's difficult to monitor the day 3, day 7, and day 11. So the app with the date will help to remind a worker and also the employer when is supposed to be his next ART for easy tracking purposes. Okay, so it will not affect his access code. If he do miss his ART, the access code will not turn to red. But for better protection, if he did miss, please ensure that he go to his ART sooner, right?
A lot of questions on manpower because, as we know, there is a worker shortage, and of course we empathize with the firms who are facing this right now. A lot of questions on whether they can, when they can get workers in from the traditional sources, what they can do, and is there anything else they can do about it for non-traditional sources? Maybe holistically we can help a bit.
Okay, as MOS has shared, we are doing pilot scheme to help firms bring in workers safely. Once the inflow and the processes have been established, we can share more industry how to help them to bring in the workers safely through this inflow means.
Okay, thanks, Lei Tuan.
Right, thanks.
I've given Puni a lot of rest right now. So there's a lot of questions on whether workers on site, Puni, can not wear their mask under certain conditions, when they're doing strenuous work, when they are alone in the cabin for crane operators, excavator operators, and so forth. Maybe you can elaborate on what we are looking for. Over to you, Puni.
Yeah, okay, thanks, Reggie. Basically, mandatory requirement for masks is because there's MOH requirement. We understand that there's strenuous works going on at the site where workers are required to take out the mask. So we have actually given some guide to say that they can take out the mask when there's a worker not around, and give them some kind of air gap. If not, they can actually come out from the place and go to somewhere where they can actually take some rest. We would prefer that if the workers are in together, whether they are working in a confined space or in an open space, they should be wearing the mask according to MOH. The spread is everywhere. So if they think that they need more kind of air and they need to breathe more, then what they can do is to go to a place where they can take out the mask and rest for a while and then come back again for their work. Thanks.
Okay, so basically, Pune, what I was saying is basically for their protection and for the protection of those around them when they're at work, the advice is to really keep their mask on, I guess.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, of course.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
What are maybe since you're here, Pune, maybe what is one message you would say based on what our inspections are turning up that contractors really should watch out for, keep their sites safe?
Yeah, okay. So like what my colleague Benjamin has re-emphasized, the main thing is that when the workers going in, they got to check their status in terms of the schedule, the RRT and ART schedule, and whether they have actually cleared this. The second thing is to make sure their safe entry is done properly, so that any worker that is going in and out are registered in that sense. So this part actually helps in a lot manner to ensure that if there is any cases within the site, it's easily contacted and easily isolated, and MOH can actually work on it faster. So the other things is mainly we look at is the safe distancing within the workers and all that. Shouldn't be any complacency on that. And the fourth thing that I want to highlight is the non-dom colleagues that are coming from the non-dom places. They need to be more vigilant because they are going to more in terms of communicating with the community. So they need to be more vigilant and more careful when they come back to the site and all that. So their ART and RRT schedule, we will emphasize them to make sure they comply with the schedule accordingly. And before they go into the site, make sure that the relevant person check their status and allow them accordingly. That's the four things that I want to emphasize. Thanks, Richie.
Yeah, okay, thanks. Manhon, over to you now. There seem to be some questions on filing of notification of relief. Reading the questions, I guess my sense, talking to industry also, is that a lot of contractors are hesitant to file it. Maybe you can elaborate about this notification of relief and why it's important.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, part 2 of the CORDMA actually provides protection to firms who are unable to meet the contractual obligations, such as like meeting the contract timeline or complete the project in time due to CORDMA, due to COVID. So, but however, in order to receive the relief, you have to file a notification for relief. So this is the catch. We understand the industry's feedback, but we also want to add that actually, based on our data, so far, I think for the construction contract, we have, MinLaw have actually received at least 1,500 notification. So of course, the best is if you can actually talk to your client. Everything can be settled amicably, then there's no need to file the relief. But filing the relief is just a basic protection. It's something like vaccination. So after you file the relief, okay, you don't need to send a lawyer's letter to the client or whatever. You just need to go to a MinLaw's website. There's a page for you to key in the info and file the relief. So after you key in the info, the form will be automatically routed to the your client based on the info that you provided. So it's something that accord protection to you. I think many in the industry have already done it. And the important thing is that after you have filed the relief, let's say any delay, any liquidated damages arising from any delay due to COVID, after you have filed the relief, the protection will actually goes beyond the 30th September. So the current protection is that, okay, from now until 30th September, you have to, if you have filed a relief, your client cannot sue you, but that's only until 30th September. But what's more important is that after you file the relief, they can, any LD arising from delay due to COVID, the client cannot impose LD based on that. So I think it's quite important protection. So of course, the best if you can talk to your client, but if the situation warrants it, it's still better for you to file the notification relief in MinLaw's website.
Okay, thanks. Back now to this one, I guess 4 questions, will take them one at a time, but I'll just give you a heads up on the things that be coming in. Basically, the first one is broadly for ART. What's the direction? Is it for the medium term? Is it here to stay? That's, I think, the underlying question behind whether it's mandated or not. The rest are probably more technical questions. I'll check you one by one here.
Okay. Currently, thank you, Regina. Currently, ART is not mandated. It's on a pilot, but we would encourage everyone to onboard the pilot. Basically, if your project has been submitted to BCA for approval to restart, you can apply to be on the pilot, whether your project is big or small. Okay, so once you're on pilot, you will be able to get the free ART CARES kits at no charge for us to train your workers, personnel who are living in non-doms, to be able to do the self-test to protect the work site and ensure that they are COVID-free before entering your workplace to work. Okay, so going forward, we would like to encourage more to take on this preemptive surveillance. As of now, there's no certainty when test kits will continue to be supplied at no charge, and the training at this low cost to make it more affordable for the industry. So please come on board as soon as you can. Okay, regarding whether it will be there for the long term, medium term, we will share with you more details when ready. But meanwhile, just come and be on the pilot first. Is that all right, Regina?
Yeah, yes. Two questions. I guess the questions are related, probably cost. For the self-swap that we are talking about allowing, the two questions first. I think the underlying question is, will the government still provide the test kits or pay for the test kits, even if it's a self-swap? That's one question. The other one is whether the ART trainer needs to be full-time on ART training.
Okay, right now, under the pilot, the ART test kits are supplied at no charge. Okay, beyond that, we will share with the industry. We have more information. Okay, so regarding the supervisor, does he need to be on full-time? Not necessary. So we have got projects whom the supervisor actually doubles up as a WSH officer or as a security personnel, or even the usual maybe structural or architectural supervisor. What the supervisor needs to do is just to supervise that the ART has been done following the correct steps and procedures, and indeed the result is correctly interpreted. It is associated with the person that he has supervised, and the supervisor will upload the results into SRS or FW-MomCare, or even later on we have got the SRS version 2. So that is the different apps they can use for uploading the ART results.
Go ahead.
Yeah, so the supervisor has to be trained to do all this. So BCAA is providing training for this. We would like to urge all of you who want to start on the pilot and also thinking on the pilot, quickly sign up for the training first. Yeah, you do not have to wait for the test kits to be delivered before signing up for the training.
Those who sign up for the training, this is a related question from somebody else. Does it mean that they have they once they sign up for the training and they are trained, they will have to take part in the pilot? That was a question from a member of the audience.
Training. If you sign up for training, I'll expect probably you deploy him to be a supervisor because he has the skill set. Yeah.
Okay. Another question is on the onboarding application form for ART. It requires a mandatory project reference number. So basically, maybe you can talk a bit about who we're expecting to apply for the ARTs, main cons or whatever. So I think this is a more question on am I eligible or not? Who's eligible? Who can come on board?
I also explained earlier, basically whoever has submitted to BCA for approval to restart, there will be a main contractor and there'll be a Form SG. There's also a project reference number to the project. So for this pilot is for projects that have been approved by BCA to restart. And for the non-dom personnel entering the worksite.
Okay, thanks a lot, Leituan.
Okay, thanks. Welcome.
I'm still looking at some numbers, but one of the questions maybe to share with the audience, which I'll just answer it because I think Manhon already answered it, is basically how do they check with us as BCA officers, whether it's on ART or other things like CODMA and so forth. And I think Manhon already answered this, but I'll just invite him to answer again on how they can contact us to help. Or maybe I'll just jump in. Basically, there is an online helpline, 1-800-DCA. You can contact us. If you Google DCA, contact us, help, you will see links to our online form and the 1-800 number. So for those of you with sort of complicated problems that you want to chat with somebody, you can use that method because it goes to people who are directed to the right people. A lot more questions on insufficient space, which I think this one has answered, that is online swabbing. Question for the ART kit for later one, do they need any special storage requirements, like fridge or what to store the ART kit?
Yeah, hi, Regional. No need, as long as it's in room temperature, but don't store them under the direct sunlight. Yeah. No dampness, keep it in a dry space. That should be okay.
This question just came in recently, so I think it's a repeat question, but am I right to say, this is the audience asking, that only the main con admitting workers onto the worksite need to send their rep to attend the ART supervisor course? Subcon do not need to send their rep for the ART supervisor course.
Okay, anyone can send a rep to attend the ART supervisor course, but now we are actually trying to give all project opportunity to get the project staff trained. There is, if you can notice in the application form, we have only placed there 2 supervisors from any project currently. So that 2 persons from the project can be from the main con or from the subcon. There's no restriction. Is that all right?
Yeah, that's all right. I'm just scrolling through the questions. Some of them repeat, so if we've answered them before.
Sure.
Okay. For the ART kits, do the chaps request them on a monthly basis or based on what kind of schedule do they request for them?
Okay, maybe just to share, when you come on board the pilot, we'll give you 1 month supply first, because you will probably need time to get familiar on storage, issuance, and so on. But once you're on board, when you come and apply for more supplies, the usual arrangement is a 2 month supply. So for those who have been on board, I think since day 1, they are regularly getting their 2 month supply. Okay. Hope it clarifies.
That clarifies. Okay. The last one seems to be a confusion, but maybe I'll just check with you. They just came in. Wait a minute. Yes. One question is, how much are the cost of ART kits, do we know, and whether they can be purchased? I think this is a guy looking further on when the kits are not maybe supplied for free or they want to do something outside.
Okay, I think right now the ART kits are available at the pharmacy. You can just walk in and buy. Price range around $10 to $12 per kit. Up to you to choose which brand you would like to take. As long as it's MOH approved, we are accepting it on the submission of the ART test records, right? But then again, all ART kits being on sale at the pharmacy should be MOH approved.
Okay, this is a question on cost again. probably from a subcontractor worried about cost, or contractor worried about cost. Once I join the ART pilot, is it possible to back out if the subsidies are no longer given, assuming that it is not mandated yet? If no subsidies for the kids.
Sorry, there's no subsidy for the
No, no.
kid at this moment. Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So
Yeah.
right now there's no subsidy, right? No.
No, it's just given at no charge. So there's no subsidy for the kids.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. For subcontractors, is it possible to obtain the ART kits for the foreign workers that visit construction site? How do they do this in general?
Okay, for subcontractors who are working in any construction sites, as long as the main contractor has applied to BCA for approval to be on the pilot scheme, they can get the kits from the main contractor. Right? So the main contractor will have collected for them because the non-dom construction personnel who are entering the work site would have been included in the main contractor's submission to BCA for approval. So they are accounted under the project site numbers.
Okay. There's a question that just came in. Maybe I would quite obvious, or maybe answer and see whether that's right. The question says that the previous slide says that ART is mandatory for work sites from 27th August 2021. I'm not sure if we said that, but it's still a pilot test. I'm pretty sure that from what you said, it's a pilot test, right? So maybe we can just reconfirm it for benefit of doubt, because it just came in. So it is some questions coming in just 1-2 minutes ago, all checking regarding whether it is mandatory or not. My sense is that it is not mandated across all projects, but if the main contractor or the developer has opted in, then obviously everybody opts in and does the ART. Is that correct?
Yes, yes. As long as the main contractor submits to be under pilot, then they can be on the ART pilot. The subcontractors included for the project.
Okay, so this probably settles that question. If the project is submitted for ART by the main con or developer, then obviously it becomes something that everybody has to do on the project. You can't have half of them. Question. I'm not sure whether this would be directed. Will RMC supplier be able to get their own ART or their own batching plan?
Okay. They are already on our pilot, some of them. Yeah. So we encourage more to come forward. Not just RMC, but also prefab suppliers and manufacturers.
Okay. So I guess the answer is yes. Please come on board and you can do it at your own batching plan, obviously, right?
Yes, yes.
Moderator, in the interest of time, can I suggest that we take 2 more questions?
Okay.
And since a lot of questions on ART has already been answered, shall we take the 2 more questions on KOTMA?
Okay. Would that accept that the questions coming in seem to be a lot on ART, but one that came out on KOTMA? For KOTMA Part 10, I think this is a bit technical, but is there any way to guidance to work out the worker's salary pre and post COVID? The rationale given by the gentleman is because not every worker will be able to substantiate using payslips for pre and post COVID salary.
Okay, maybe just want to explain. KOTMA Part 10A is not a claim process. So actually it's the negotiation between the parties. So basically, I mean, if you want to put across your offer to your client, then I suppose it's also contractor's duty to really tell your client how much you think your client should, I mean, so-called compensate you. So I think as far as possible, I think substantiation and payslip will actually help your clients actually to provide the cost sharing that are so-called needed to you. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So as we saw a lot of ART questions, but a lot of them are starting to repeat. Maybe we can invite one more question or two more questions on both COTMA and any questions on safe SMM on-site safe management practices. Apart from ELT, because they seem to be repeating right now.
Maybe I'll just add on for COTMA Part 10A since it's going to start tomorrow. Okay, so the COTMA Part 10A, tomorrow BCA will send out a circular. You can also find more info in the webpage. BCA have also prepared a template for you to so-called help the contractor to present the cost increase in a more systematic manner, so that it's easier for both parties to look at the cost increase and so-called negotiate. So all this will be available on BCA's website. So tomorrow, once you, we are going to send out the circular in the morning. So once you receive the circular, or you, actually after tomorrow morning, actually if you search COTMA Part 10A BCA, likely you will be able to find the BCA webpage already. So, inside there will be information on how you can actually so-called discuss about the manpower cost increase with your clients. So if let's say after you discuss with your clients, you think that the cost, you cannot reach a mutual agreement on the cost sharing arrangement, then there's the option for you actually to apply to an independent assessor. And the steps are also available on the website as well. I mean, we hope you don't need to go to the step that you need to go to the assessor, because I mean, we all value the relationship with each other, but if there's a lead, I mean, there's this option which you can go to. So all this info will be available tomorrow.
Yeah, okay. Manpon, I think thanks for that. Looks like there are no more new questions on COTMA or so. With that, I think we can why don't we can close the Q&A.
Thank you, moderator and our panelists for addressing the concerns of the industry. To participants, if you have not subscribed to BCA's Telegram channel, you may do so by scanning the QR code on this slide. With the subscription, you will receive the latest updates on the built environment sector. BCA will be organizing more webinars on DFMA, innovation and sustainability in August and September. The third edition of the International Built Environment Week, or IBEW, will be conducted from the 7th to 10th of September. Do scan the QR code on the screen to find out more about this exciting event. Ladies and gentlemen, we've come to the end of today's program. After exiting this webinar, you will be directed to access a short feedback survey. Once you have submitted the form, you will be able to download the speaker's presentation materials. Thank you for your participation and for making this webinar a success. We would like to wish all Singaporeans a happy National Day.